First of all, thank you for this really special introduction and welcome. That was very kind of you to say all these kind words about my work, but we will see at the end of the presentation if it's true, right? If you feel the same way. So the topic of my talk for today has to do with, well, let's put it. It's not there yet, eh? It's not projecting yet. Okay, here we are. So the title is Strategies for Managing Successful Career Transitions. So most of my research has to do with things that are called career transitions. And in the course of next hour and a half, hopefully you will understand exactly what that means. Because many of you are maybe going through a career transition at the moment or very soon in your life. Every 4 to 5 years, we all go through another career transition. So these things are very, very common, and all of us experience them. You already heard who I am, so I don't really need to tell you more, but what I do is I teach students like yourself, and I also manage a master's and Ph.D. program at my school in Toronto, in Canada. But the most important part of my work, I would say, or a big part of my work, is my research. So I do studies, I conduct research, I publish papers on the topic of career management. And remember I told you about these career transitions. So some examples. What are these career transitions? Job search, if you're looking for a new job. So that means you are in transition between one job and the next one. People who retire, they go through a major change in their career because they stop working and they take on a new role in life. Another one is when you become an entrepreneur. So let's say you work for an organization and then you want to start your own business. That's a transition into something different. The people that I study most in my career are immigrants. And in fact, I talk to a lot of immigrants from India who come to Canada. And it's a major career and life transition because they leave their home country, they leave their jobs, they leave their families, and they start a completely new life. So that's a really major transition in their life. And I study how they cope with this change. So I'm actually a psychologist by training, and I focus on these kinds of changes in people's lives. Do you have any questions at this point? No? Okay. So let's move on slowly. What I plan to do today is introduce you to 3 simple metaphors and give you some advice for your own career. Can anybody tell me what is a metaphor? Any ideas? We all have metaphors in all languages. In your language, in my language. What do you think they are? Put up your hand if you have any ideas. Yes?
Example that's similar to another particular instance.
Correct. So it's a way of describing something with a different word. Usually what a metaphor is a way to simplify some concept. So in career studies, which is what I teach, and in a book that I teach, every single chapter is a career metaphor. So if I ask you, tell me, what is a career? What does that mean? You would probably start telling me some complicated ways. You know, we all have many jobs. These jobs are our career. It takes all of our, it's a long term. We start with our first job, blah, blah, blah. But here, what I'm doing with a metaphor is I'm using one word to summarize some part of what career means. So I will present 3 metaphors for careers. Careers as action, careers as resources, and careers as relationships. Do you think that there is one most important metaphor? I am presenting three. Do you think that there is one way to think about careers that's more important than others? Yes? No? Yes? Sorry? Life. Career as life. It's a kind of summary of it all. Okay. That's a good one.
Enjoyment of life.
Which one?
Enjoyment of life.
Enjoyment of life. Career as enjoyment of life. It's very important to like what you do because we spend so many hours of our life at work. So if we don't like what we do at work, we're probably not going to be too happy when we come home. So my way of helping you in your careers is to tell you about how to take action and why taking action is important for your career, how to think about careers as resources, and a really important one, which is careers as relationships. Because who we are doesn't exist without people around us. Okay? So far, any questions? No? Feel free to, if you have a really, burning question or something that you're not quite sure what it means, please ask, okay? All right. So we move on. This is how careers can be presented visually. So on your left, you see these people climbing a career ladder. Career ladder is another metaphor, right? So what do we mean by career ladder? Anybody? All the steps you need to take to reach some goal, right? Anything else that you feel this symbolizes? Choosing a different ladder. Maybe I want to climb this way or maybe that way. Maybe I want to be a doctor or maybe I want to be an engineer. Or what about a ladder once you have a job in an organization? What does a ladder mean? Anybody? Just one? I can't. Yes? To reach the top, there is the top of the organization, right? Maybe you want to be a CEO. Maybe you want to be a dean of a business school. So that's considered a top, right? And what are these ladders? They represent different jobs, right? Or stages of your careers. So you start at the bottom, you work your way up, you get a promotion, you get a better job. What do you think this picture on the right, what kind of career is that? There are options, okay. But there are options here too. So what's different? One person? Yes? Job rotation, okay. So maybe you're going to different jobs. That's a good point. There is one more thing that's very different. Yes? You can what? You can go through any door. So you have lots of opportunities. Okay, I'll tell you. The what? Decision making? That's true, but there is no ladder. You're not climbing up, right? The terrain is very flat. And so the way that we think about careers today is actually changing from the way that maybe your grandparents experienced, or even parents. It's very common that in the past, people spend most of their career in how many companies? One or two. And what do we do today? How many companies will you work in? Many, maybe 10, because every 4 years or so, you will make some type of a change, whether it's a new job, moving to a different city, starting a family, that's another transition, and so on. So the career ladder is becoming a lot more flat. Okay? Not that there aren't jobs that are hierarchical. There are many jobs that are still like the career on the left. But in general, things are changing to become a lot more flat. So in a way that the only way, there isn't one way to build your career, which is just through promotions in one company, but rather it's many different companies that will help you to build your career. Okay, so what I want to do next, this is just a summary of what we just talked about. On the left side is your traditional career, and on the right side is this new career that we're talking about. So traditional, one company, you know, I don't know if it's typical in India that you get a big present if you stayed in a company for 20 or 30 years, yeah? In North America, you get like watch or something like that. But there are very few jobs that will give you this kind of job security and job for life. It's a lot more like the career on the right side. So we think about these traditional careers versus new careers. What I want to do next is give you a little bit of work to do, okay, but very little. I will show you a video, 5 minutes long video, of a woman that maybe you're familiar with. Her name is Sheryl Sandberg. Have you heard who she is? Who is she? She's a chief operating officer of Facebook. She studied at Harvard Business School, and lately she's been in the news for maybe not such good reasons, right? Some challenges that Facebook is experiencing. In any case, she's a woman that's very well known in business world. So we're not really judging if she's doing good things or bad things. But what I want to show you is a speech, part of a speech that she gave to students who were graduating from Harvard Business School a couple of years ago. It's a 5-minute long video, and she talks about this. She talks about how careers have changed, in her view. So what I want you to do, try to make notes of anything that she says in the video, that talks about this change in careers. So just listen carefully and note down anything she says that has to do with how careers have changed. Okay. So we need to come to minute 4 and then stop at 9. No, it's the this one. No, sorry, no. It's not there actually.
Visit up.
If you go to the slides, it's this one. Maybe they forgot to paste it. Just copy. So it's a longer speech, but we will just do 5 minutes. It has to come up, I guess, or maybe copy and paste. While we're setting up the video, can I just see hands, show of hands, how many of you have already worked in an organization before for any amount of time? Okay, just a few of you. So the rest of you are at which point in your career? Can anybody tell me? Finishing studies, what year are you? Which one are you? Final year university. Okay. So most of you are about to start a major career transition that's called school to work. School to work, right? So you are living this wonderful, comfortable life of studying that you think it's hard, and you are starting your new part of life, which is called more like full-time job, full-time work, right? How many of you had a part-time job at any point? That you worked a few hours a week? Just a few? Okay. So can I assume that during your university studies, you spend most of your time studying? Yes? Okay.
Please join me in welcoming Sheryl Sandberg.
So just bear with me 4 minutes, yeah. Literally 400 if you can. That, perfect. So carefully listen to what she says has changed. And then we can start.
Traditional career paths are shifting as well. In 2001, after working in the government, I moved out to Silicon Valley to try to find a job. My timing wasn't really that good. The bubble had crashed, small companies were closing, big companies were laying people off. One woman CEO looked at me and said, "We would never even think about hiring someone like you." After a while, I had a few offers and I had to make a decision. So what did I do? I'm MBA trained. I made a spreadsheet. And I listed my jobs in the columns and the things that my criteria in the rows, and compared the companies and the missions and the roles. One of the jobs on that sheet was to become Google's first business unit general manager, which sounds good now, but at the time, no one thought consumer internet companies could ever make money. I was not sure that there was actually a job there at all. Google had no business units, so what was there to generally manage? And the job was several levels lower than jobs I was being offered at other companies. So I sat down with Eric Schmidt, who had just become the CEO, and I showed him my spreadsheet, and I said, "This job meets none of my criteria." He put his hand on my sheet, and he looked at me and he said, "Don't be an idiot. Excellent career advice." And then he said, "Get on a rocket ship. When companies are growing quickly and they're having a lot of impact, careers take care of themselves. And when companies aren't growing quickly or the missions don't matter as much, that's when stagnation and politics come in. If you're offered a seat on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, just get on." About 6.5 years later, when I was leaving Google, I took that advice to heart. I was offered CEO jobs at a bunch of companies, but I went to Facebook as COO. At the time, people said, "Why are you going to work for a 23-year-old? The traditional metaphor for careers is a ladder, but I no longer think that metaphor holds. It doesn't make sense in a less hierarchical world. When I was first at Facebook, a woman named Lori Goler, a 1997 graduate of HBS, was working in marketing at eBay, and I knew her kind of socially, and she called me and she said, "I want to think about, talk to you about coming to work with you at Facebook." So I thought about calling you and telling you all the things I'm good at and all the things I like to do, but I figured that everyone's doing that. So instead, I want to know, what's your biggest problem and how can I solve it? My jaw hit the floor. I've hired thousands of people up to that point in my career, but no one had ever said anything like that, and I had never said anything like that. Job searches are always about the job searcher, but not in Lori's case. I said, "You're hired. My biggest problem is recruiting, and you can solve it." So Lori changed fields into something she never thought she'd do, went down a level to start in a new field, and has since been promoted and runs all of the people operations at Facebook and is doing an extraordinary job, having amazing impact. Lori has a great metaphor for careers. She says they're not a ladder, they're a jungle gym. As you start your post-HBS career, look for opportunities. Look for growth, look for impact, look for mission. Move sideways, move down, move on, move off. Build your skills, not your resume. Evaluate what you can do, not the title they're going to give you. Do real work. Take a sales quota, a line role, an ops job. Don't plan too much, and don't expect a direct climb. If I had mapped out my career when I was sitting where you are, I would have missed my career. You are entering a different business world than I entered. Mine was just starting to get connected. Yours is hyper-connected. Mine was competitive. Yours is way more competitive. Mine moved quickly. Yours moves even more quickly. As traditional structures are breaking down, leadership has to evolve as well. From hierarchy to shared responsibility, from command and control to listening and guiding. You've been trained by this great institution not just to be part of these trends, but to lead. As you lead in this new world, you will not be able to rely on who you are or the degree you hold. You'll have to rely on what you know. Your strength will not come from your place on some org chart. Your strength will come from building trust and earning respect. You're going to need talent and skill and imagination and vision. But more than anything else, you're going to need the ability to communicate authentically, to speak so that you inspire the people around you, and to listen so that you continue to learn each and every day on the job. If you watch young children, you'll immediately notice how honest they are. My friend Betsy in my section a few years after business school was pregnant with her second child. And her first child, Sam, was about 5. And he looked at her and said, "Mommy, where's..."
Okay, forget the story about the friend. But prior to that, we saw 5 minutes of Sheryl Sandberg's speech to graduates. Okay, graduates who are a little bit older than you. You're finishing your undergraduate, but many of you are looking to study a master's degree, correct? Maybe a master's in business, which will be another transition in your life. So what is the type of advice that this woman is giving to these students in the audience? What did you note down? What kinds of things? If you can put up your hand. Yes? So a few things you're sharing with us. One is to look at opportunities. So maybe there is a field that's growing. Maybe it's a small company. But if you think about what will happen to this industry or the company in the future, it may be a good opportunity for you. Secondly, you said to build your skills, not your resume. So to think about this job that I'm just now applying for, what kinds of things will I learn? It's not so much about what's the title of the position, but what is it that I'm getting out of this job for my career in the future? And what was the third thing? Yes, so she talks about this idea of how we plan too much. This is very common. All of us are always thinking, you know, what's the strategy? How do I get to the job, to the next organization? But a lot of the times when I talk to people about careers, you know what they tell me? What do you think their answer is if I ask them, tell me about your career. How did you end up in Microsoft? What do they say? Any ideas? Up there? Yes. It was? Exactly. I was lucky. This just happened by chance. So this is exactly what she's saying. You know, she had at the beginning, she says, I had this spreadsheet and all these people I talked to and companies, and I was looking at my, you know, plan. But what happened then? Opportunity came up, and she was not going to say no. She went for it. So most of the time in our careers, we have to be open to these things that happen by chance. Okay? So even though you have a plan and you're all organized, be open to things that happen spontaneously, that happen to you because you were sitting in a train beside somebody, you started chatting, and guess what? This person happens to be working in the IT company that you're really interested in, and he or she, you know, gives you their name, you contact them, and the next thing you know, you got a job. But not because you planned, but because you happen to be talking to somebody next to you. We'll talk a little bit more about these relationships later on. Let me hear maybe 3 more things that you picked up from this video. Yes? You should not expect direct, what? Climb, right? So she's all about this career not being what? Not being a ladder. Remember the 2 pictures? But she used a metaphor. And does anybody remember which metaphor she used? Jungle gym. So I don't know if, I have kids, so I go to these places often. But these are like, things that are up and down, unexpected. It's definitely not just one way to climb. So she's saying careers are a lot about jungle gym. 1 more. 2 more. That's right. She said a lot of your success in your career will depend on how you communicate. And she uses the word authentic communication. What does that mean? Being what? If you mean what you say, right? So being genuine, being honest in how you talk at work matters. Just before you this morning, I was giving a lecture to master students here at Myra Business School, and my whole talk was about communication and how it's important for your careers. So that's sort of your next step to think about how you communicate. Any other things that Sheryl Sandberg shared about how careers have changed? Growth opportunities and impact. So she talks about what we kind of said in the beginning, right? It's not just about the best job, but where can you make most impact for your career in terms of learning new skills? Is it a growing industry? Is it something that will only become big in the future? Sometimes it's hard to know what's the next big thing, right? But she's saying don't say no to some opportunities just because it's not your big, IBM, Microsoft, or whatever. And 1 more. Leadership development. What does she say about that? I can't remember. Listening, right? So being a good leader is also about listening and not so much about always having the answer to things, but listening to people around you. Any others? I keep thinking of one that I thought was really important. Yes?
Our life has been changing. Like, it was way more competitive before.
Even yes, more competitive, more complex, right? So she thought before careers were competitive and so on, but now it's even more competitive, more connected. You need more skills and so on. Any other that you're dying to share? Something that you put down? Yes? Yes, she uses again a metaphor. If you get a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask which seat it is, just get on, right? So it's this idea of being spontaneous and taking a chance, taking an opportunity, right? Any other? 1 more. I thought there were so many things. You mentioned a lot of really good ones. Yes? Yes. So she says, people were connected before, but today, people are even more connected. So we know a lot more about anybody. You Google my name today, you'll find all kinds of stuff that you did to introduce me, because we're all connected much more through social media. Any other? Quick, 1 more. It's hard now because we mentioned so many. Anybody from above has 1 more? Yes, okay. This one is really important. I don't know if we're thinking about the same one. That's the one I wanted to mention to you. When she was talking about this job interview, do you remember? And she says, usually, when we are in the job interview, what do? We tell the best things about us, right? How great I am, at which school I studied, all these jobs that I had before, how many people, let's say, I was leading, supervising, which company I worked for. But what did she learn is really important to do in a job interview. What kind of question? Anybody remembers? Okay, I'll help you. Asking them, what is the challenge that you are facing in the organization, and how can, yes?
What is your personal problem that you want to face?
The problem of the organization, and how can I help you? So it's really reversing the roles in the job interview. It also means that you have to learn a lot about the company and the person who's interviewing you, so that you know what kind of challenges, why do they need you? How can you help them, as opposed to just saying how great you are? So really being very focused on the problem that the organization or this role may require. Okay, so we almost went through my whole presentation in this 5-minute video. But I still have a few things to tell you about what you can do in your future careers. Let's just quickly, I know most of you are looking at the transition from school to work. Can you think of any other transition that either you or your maybe mother or father or somebody close to you has gone through? As an example of a career transition somebody has gone through. Anybody's parent retired? No, not yet. Okay. Anybody's parents started their own business after working in an organization? So he's now managing hospital, but he studied to do another type of work. Okay. Was it easy, this change? No? Okay. So what I'm trying to get at is that these transitions, these changes that we're talking about are not easy. In fact, they may feel risky. You know, it's uncertain. How many of you are thinking about the kind of job that you will get, or whether you will find the best job? A few? So you are concerned. You're thinking about what's coming up. So career transitions are about letting go, exploring, planning, but also taking the unexpected. So it's kind of a mix of things. It's about exploring career options, but most of all, career transitions don't just happen to you. I mean, of course, there is, you're lucky, there's a chance event, but a lot of the times there is the opposite force, which is you taking action, being proactive, talking to people, calling them, sending your resumes, meeting new people, right? There's a lot about this idea of being proactive. Now, I'll just show you 2 quotes, which are sort of playing on the other side of things. When I finished my studies at University of Toronto, one of the projects that I did is interview people who lost their jobs. So they were working very hard. They were what we call workaholic, constantly working, constantly connected to their job. And all of a sudden, they came to work one day. This happens in North America a lot. I don't know if it happens in India. And without expecting, you are told that your job is no more. Okay? So they lost their jobs. They were unemployed, which is a major career transition. You learn the vocabulary. And this is what some of these people told me when I interviewed them. So I asked them about this job loss, this transition. How was it? And they said, it was a blessing in disguise. I had a transition period. I had time to reflect on everything. It was easier for me to take a chance. I had time to rethink overall what is really important to me in my life and things like that. Picked up a new hobby that I'm still pursuing. I had more time to catch up with people. So what are these people saying? These are actually two different individuals. What was the transition like? And keep in mind that they're telling me this after some time. So it's not immediately when they were shocked and upset and stressed and depressed because all of a sudden they have no job. It was a little bit after. But what are they finding out? What's the transition like?
Instead of spending a time for an organization, they spend it the time on themselves and what they want.
Yes. So this is a really important message for all of you when you're looking for a new job or next job, when you're finishing your school and entering the career, the official career, is to first of all reflect and explore what is it that you really want and who you are. Many times there are these competing pressures. Your parents are telling you one thing, your girlfriend, your boyfriend wants another thing. You know, they want to get married, they want to settle down, they want you to get this first job, and so on and so forth. But what do you really want? You know, have you explored the options? Because a lot of times we just go and take that first job and so on. So these people, when they lost their job, it was maybe for the first time in their lives that they had a chance to explore other opportunities. The first person there who says it was a blessing in disguise, you know what she did before she lost her job? She was this computer administrator where she controlled the systems, computer systems in a big organization. So she had a pager at that time that would beep every time she had to connect. And she said it was like a leash, right? She was constantly working and also had children and so on. And all of a sudden, when she lost her job, she had this time to explore, to think about herself. Do you know what she pursued? She left computers. Any guesses? Something very different from computers. I can't hear you. Dancing? That's very different, you're right. But no, she went back to school to become a nurse. So to work with people. You had a guess? Instead of working with computers, she now decided to work with people. So this is just an example of how important these transitions are. And you are now facing a transition because you have to let go of this idea that you're a student, that you're doing exams, that there's books, there's papers you're writing. And now you have to move into something that's unpredictable, uncertain, risky, maybe scary. But what I'm suggesting is take some time to really reflect and explore what's out there and who you are and what you want. So my first career advice is about this idea of taking action. And the 4 C's come from a theory that's called career construction theory. And even the word construction is a metaphor because it tells you that careers do not just happen, but they're created. You construct them. And so in order to pursue your next career move, you have to take these 4 steps or engage in this kind of 4 C's. One being, are you concerned about your career? Or you are sort of like, well, it's okay, whatever. So if you want to be successful, you have to be concerned. Not overly concerned, but, you know, enough to take action. Secondly, are you in control of your future, or is it your mom or dad or girlfriend or boyfriend? Think about it. Are you curious about option? In my mind, this one, curiosity, is the most important advice. Because if we're not curious, if we're not reading here and exploring on internet and talking to that person next to you on the train or plane or bus or whatever. When you get your first job, talk to people around you. If you're not curious, you will not come to those amazing opportunities on a rocket ship because you're sort of living in your own bubble, right? So you have to open up, be curious. And the last one, okay, and this one also sometimes comes with time, confidence, right? So building that confidence, feeling that you can do it. And that comes with some experience, but think about how you feel about confidence. So now we talked about my first metaphor. What's the second one? Who remembers? Careers as resources, right? Whom, right? So by being in a certain environment, you meet people who are related to what you want to be or where you want to work. And they may influence who you are. So if you meet a person that's really influential in your career, they may change your mind. Or they may give you ideas. They may suggest certain things that you didn't know about. So people can influence also our knowing why or our motivation. This is just a little model that kind of plays around this idea of career currency in these three ways. And I happen to be using this model a lot in my research, and I just want to show you one example from a study that I did with immigrants where I tried to understand what is their knowing why, how, and whom. So for skilled immigrants, and as I said, I talked to a lot of people from India who come to Canada for new life, for jobs. Their knowing why, their motivation is about integrating, becoming part of this new country. They have a lot of challenges sometimes with their knowing how, with getting those skills and experiences from their home country to be recognized in Canada. So sometimes they have to take jobs that are a little bit lower, the different level or different type, before they can get to where they want. How do you think immigrants feel about the knowing whom when they come to a new country? Sorry? Secure? Not sure. Remember, you left your home country and you came to a completely new country. Do you know people? They have relatives. They have relatives or friends, yes. But in terms of work, it's often a challenging question because you don't know a lot of people who work in Canada in companies in your field. So the knowing whom is a especially tricky one. Yes, you have friends, you have family, and they can help you for sure. But oftentimes you need to meet locals. You need to meet people from that country, from specific organizations to help you. So for immigrants, this whole cycle of knowing why, how, and whom becomes really challenging because you are in a new country, you're becoming somebody new. You may have to go back to school sometimes to get your degree accredited and so on. So to summarize, as you continue building your careers, this career capital changes, right? It's dynamic. One day your suitcase is full of skills, but don't be so confident because things have changed, things move very quickly, and you may not have the same employability in the future. So the lesson is you have to constantly work around these three things, whether it's taking a new course, learning from a colleague, updating yourself, kind of looking at what's next. But you have to be proactive. So going back to first advice, right, to first metaphor, careers as action, in order to be constantly employable and to have that currency, motivation, skills, and relationships. Do you have any questions? No, we have one more metaphor to cover, and then you can ask any questions at the end as well. Yes?
They've told us that we have to make our skills better than build a resume.
Is it to build a resume more important or
Skills.
skills?
Aren't both of them interlinked? Like
Yes.
Our resume contains of our skills.
Correct.
So aren't they more interlinked?
Yes, you're right. So what she was saying, you're referring back to the video, right? What she was saying is that sometimes to build your resume, you need to show that you worked for a bigger company. You supervised more people. You worked on more projects. And she was saying sometimes you have to focus on what did you learn. So to type of skills as well. So I guess, you know, it's not to say building your resume in this hierarchical way is not important, but she's just pointing to another aspect that's very important, which is sometimes maybe you take a lateral job. That doesn't mean a promotion, but it's just a different job in a different line of work because you learn something new. And that's exactly the resource. That's the knowing how. That's putting more stuff into your suitcase. In fact, she gives example of take a lateral move, take a lateral job. Don't always look at that hierarchy, okay? All right, so what's our third metaphor? Relationships. A really, really important one. So when we talk about careers, we can't think about them in a vacuum. So these things that we call careers, whichever metaphor you take, they don't develop without people. How do you think you will find your next job? What will be the way to get your job, your first job after graduating? Network, right? So chances are that your next job will depend on people that you know or people that know you. Sometimes it's a friend of a friend of a friend. Sometimes it's your mother's or father's colleague and so on, aunt, uncle, whoever. But these people help us in our careers. So careers are inseparable from social network. One of you just said networking, right? How will I get my next job? Through networking. How do you feel about networking? Is that something that you're happy to do? Or is it something that, you know, you feel a bit uneasy? Maybe you're not as confident when it comes to networking. What is your take on that? Personally, you would prefer not to network. So really, you know, just apply for a job, have a posting online, apply for it and get it. Anyone else?
It makes you feel more influential.
It makes you feel
Yeah.
influential?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like you go through their reference, you actually don't get selected through them. You just pass through someone else with the other connection. So you don't step on your foot like.
So you feel...
Be a parasite kind of like, not exactly, but
Yeah, so you're sort of getting in that job because you know somebody. Maybe it's not the same as if you went through all the hurdles and all the challenges, right? So the idea here is that networking triggers these mixed feelings, right? We have to do it because it's really part of how things work in many places, in many organizations, in many countries. But it's not always easy, and it doesn't always make us feel good. Any other reflections on how you feel about networking? Fun? Okay, so you are, you know, networking king?
I would say networking, but I do like talking to people.
You like talking to people. Exactly. So you are on the right path. You like networking. Any other thoughts on networking? Yes? It's a forced activity. Yes, I can completely sympathize. A lot of people feel like I just have to do it, right? Especially if you're introvert. You're extrovert. Yes. So this second point on this slide summarizes this idea that some of us have natural sociability, it's something that comes to us naturally. While for others, it's a forced activity, it's something that we just have to do. And maybe we have to learn how to network. So in the next few slides, I will give you a few tips that hopefully will help you with the idea of networking. And when I ask you, why is this important? I actually ask you, how will you get your next job? So look how it looks. Obviously, this data may depend on the field in which you're trying to find a job, or even the country. But based on research done in many different places, on average, more than 50% of jobs we find through relationships, through people. So this is why careers as relationships is a very important metaphor. So, what do you think? Who do you have at this point in your life that helps you in your career? No one. Who? Graduation. So getting a degree is what will help you. College placement, so your college will help you to get, yes, sorry? Contacts that know somebody else, like somebody that knows somebody, yes. You will not go to a job ad. Any other people in your life that help you with your career? Who? Ourselves. Okay, of course. We have to be the ones to take action. Parents? No? Relatives? Friends? Yes. How easy is it to find those people who will help you in your career? Because many of you gave me example of other things, not people. Very difficult. So especially at this point in your career, because you're not yet having a lot of experience, you don't have a lot of company experience behind you to say, oh, I know Peter and Sanjay and Paul and so on from my previous job. I will email them, I will call them and see, where they are now. Maybe they have some ideas, maybe they know somebody and so on. You don't have that yet. So it's even harder because you're at the starting point. So somebody said up there, placements. So getting that first work experience is huge for you. But what will you do in this placement? What are some of the things that you want to do to help you further on? How do you need to behave? What's important to do in your placement? Talk to the right people. Genuine interest. Remember, authentic communication, but talk to people. Meet people not only in your group, in your team, in your department, but also people, in the hallway, when you're having coffee, when you're entering the company or, wherever you are. So your placement is really important step for your next job, because these are the relationships, this is the network that you are starting to create for yourself. How many of you will have a placement or have had a placement so far? Just one? So this is not usual to have a placement. Okay. So what about this thing called mentors? What is it? What's a mentor? Role model, guide. Okay. And how do we get these people? How do we get to say, I have a mentor? Can you have a mentor at school? Yes. Can you have a mentor in your family? Can your friend be a mentor? And at your first job, will you try to get a mentor? Ideally, yes. Maybe your boss can be your mentor. Maybe your colleague. Are mentors always older than us? Not necessarily. Traditionally, we taught about mentors as a senior person, right, who wants to help a junior person. But today, mentors, like you all told me, come from anywhere, and they can be the same age, they can be a friend, colleague, family member, and so on. But what's important is to have those people in your life and in your career. So to be able to share your concerns, to share your questions, and to seek their feedback. You don't always have to do what they say, but it's important to get that advice from somebody who cares about you. So those are mentors. Nowadays, what we talk about, more than just one mentor, we talk about something called developmental network. These are many different people in your life who help you with your career. So they're like a network of relationships. When you leave your first job and you go to a new job, right? You have a transition and you look for something different, something better, or you move to a new city, a new country. What will you do with relationships that you made in your previous job? What do you think is a good advice? Continue to be in touch with those people. So a lot of us make mistakes where, we leave to a new job, new city, but we really forget about those relationships. So I want you to be cautious not to do that, but to keep those people as part of your network, to keep in touch, to every once in a while chat with them, see how they're doing, tell them how you're doing. Those people who were your mentors or your close colleagues, friends, will really appreciate if you keep in touch. But it's very easy to lose touch with people, and you're losing part of your career, what? Capital, the knowing whom, if you don't maintain those relationships. So that's another big piece of advice for you in terms of keeping in touch and creating those relationships in the first place. Oftentimes we talk about formal mentoring and informal. Formal mentoring are those people who are assigned to you by an organization. So you start working at, let's say, Microsoft, and your boss will say, well, here is, Jim. Jim will be your mentor. He or, Ellen will show you around, will answer your questions, you can talk to them. That's formal. Right? Somebody matches you with this other person who is supposed to help you. This relationship may last, it may be great, but it may last only for a period of time, and you then meet other people and so on. Versus informal mentoring, which is a way that you naturally meet somebody who will take an interest in who you are in your career. So that's called informal mentoring. And oftentimes, informal mentoring is thought to be stronger and to have more benefit. What kind of support do these people give you? What can they do for you? There is something called career support. So very specifically geared at helping you to get a better position, exposure, right? Calling you and saying, come over, I want you to meet so-and-so, right? So they're really promoting you. Versus psychosocial help, which is more about helping you build confidence, If you have any other challenges in life, they may also help you with that. So there's two types of support. Can you receive both types of support from one person? Yes. Can you have one person who only gives you career and no psychosocial? Yes. And you can also have the other scenario where you have somebody who is your mentor but really mainly provides this kind of support. And that's fine. So, what's my advice? I want you to really keep an eye on this idea of reciprocity. Very often in our busy lives, we tend to seek things from other people. Give me a connection, give me a phone number of so-and-so, help me, da-da-da-da-da. But how often do you come back to them and say, hey, I'm currently in a new job, this is what I'm learning, this is who I know, if you ever need help with X, Y, and Z, give me a call. So this idea of reciprocity is quite important if you want to keep those relationships, if you want to maintain your network. So don't think that you only need things from other people. Consider the fact that even though you are at the beginning of career, you're very young, you don't have a lot of experience, you also have a lot to offer to other people, even more senior people. Because they may not be experts in social networks or, the latest program that you learned, or they need advice about their son and daughter's education, and you just came out of education, and so on. So keep in mind reciprocity. The second one we just talked about, which is don't be a contact collector, right? Look at all these contacts that I have. But try to maintain relationships. Try to be in touch with these people is just as important so that you have ability to call them, to connect to them in the future, as opposed to just forgetting about these people and not being in touch. And what I said earlier, research and find out how you can be of use to them. Right? So we already talked about that. Don't underestimate your ability to help others, despite being early career. And finally, just be aware of your communication style. Sometimes we are too aggressive in our communication because we really want to have all our questions answered. We want help. We need something. But be considerate. Understand that sometimes humility and modesty will take you a long way. So how you communicate with those relationships, with those people, really matters. And one more last piece of advice I want to give you before we see a video that kind of concludes my presentation. When we talk about networks, there are two types of networks. One is called a dense network, where all of the people that you know also know each other, versus sparse network, where you know different people but they don't know each other. Which one is better? Which one? Dense? Sparse. Why? You can? That's right. That's right. So in a network of relationships, if you know lots of different people, but they don't know each other, probably they're providing you with information that's unique, that's different, that's new. But if all of your contacts know each other, they likely have the same type of information. So I often ask my students, to draw this map of networks, of relationships. And sometimes they come up with, Peter, Paul, Ellen, these are all in my network. They all went to the same high school. We all live in the same part of the city. And we're now together in university. So can this person get a lot of career advice or a lot of different information? No, because they all kind of have the same story, right? So think about that. Sorry. So lots of different people that don't know each other, may be connected, but they're not best friends, you know, they're not family, versus dense network. Well, we all know each other. Okay, so I want to conclude this presentation with a 2-minute video by somebody that you probably know of, or you heard, or have seen her speak, because she gives some three types of advice that sort of summarize a lot of the things that we talked about this afternoon. And after that, if you have any other specific questions about any of the topics, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. President and NDTV, thank you very much for this incredible honor. You know, Malcolm Gladwell in his book, The Outliers, said, "Who you are cannot be separated from where you came from." I left India 35 years ago, went on to the United States, and had tremendous success in that meritocracy. But none of that could have happened if I hadn't had a wonderful upbringing very much here in India. So I have a lot to thank India for. Now my 3 lessons I'd like to share with you. First, please be a lifelong student. You know, when we are kids, we ask questions like, why is the sky blue? Why is the bird flying so high? But for some reason, as we get older, that curiosity goes away. And if we are happy with the knowledge we have, then we are actually going to atrophy. So please, remain a lifelong student. Don't lose that curiosity. Second, whatever you do, throw yourself into it. Throw your head, heart, and hands into it. I look at my job not as a job. I look at it as a calling, as a passion. And I don't care about the hours. I don't care about the hardship, because to me, everything is a joy. So whatever you do, please look upon it as a calling and a passion, not as a job, not as something temporary. The third and the most important one, please help others rise. Greatness comes not from a position, but from helping build the future. All of us in positions of power have an obligation to pull others up. You know, as I stand here today, I look at my responsibility not as accepting an honor. I look upon it as accepting a challenge and a responsibility, an obligation to actually make it possible for the people who are younger to come up and achieve levels of greatness so they too can be on the stage sometime in the future. So thank you again, NDTV, for this incredible honor. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
So I believe this video really summarizes the same 3 lessons, the same 3 career metaphors that we talked about. Her first lesson was about, or advice was about curiosity. We talked about that, right? The other one was about passion and being really in a job, not just because you have to, but because you found something that you truly enjoy. Remember, we talked about exploration, knowing yourself, being open to opportunities. And the third one is about relationships and helping to build others, in addition, obviously, to having others help you. So with that, I thank you for being a wonderful audience, and I hope that this career advice will help you in your next career transition.
Right, so you mentioned for your career capital, you have to switch jobs. You have to be comfortable with switching jobs and finding new opportunities. Now, the thing is, it's great for you as an individual, but for organizations, is it better to have a stable, non-variable workforce, or to have one that, you know, like changes all the time, but new people might come in, might not come in, you never know?
That's a really good question, and something that we haven't talked about as much, so I'm glad that you asked. So one of the things that's happening in organizations today is the fact that they're not helping you so much to build your career. In fact, organizations are more and more, I guess I would say, selfish. And you know, if you're needed, if they need you for the next 2 years, that's great. But if things change, They will not care so much about your career. They will simply let you go, just like the people that I talked about, that I interviewed in my study. So the marketplace, these contemporary careers, have become, have pushed individuals to rely a lot more on themselves. And I think organizations expect that you will do that. There are still some places that really value loyalty. But even that loyalty, I don't think is a lifelong loyalty. But you know, it may be a couple of years until you have another transition. So it's changing. Other questions?
Career as a resource, right?
Yeah.
As the capital we get, the capital we receive, it might turn into a liability also sometime for us, no? It might turn into a liability because of the company which we're working on, or what the company is going through.
Yes.
It will appear later on, right?
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Remember, when we talked about careers as resources, we talked about that being a very dynamic concept. And so the company that you're working for today maybe goes through a major crisis, or even, you know, some bad publicity. They do something really bad in the world, and you have their name on your CV, on your resume, right? So in some way, that's a liability, and you become a representative of that, of them, of their reputation, good or bad. So your resources, especially the type of organization you're working for, can be a positive resource, can be a negative. The skills that you learned maybe become obsolete. So maybe you learned something in an organization, but those systems were old. And things are not done in that way anymore. So what happens to you next in the job market? You know, you're trying to find a job with the same type of skill, but companies have moved on, and they use different systems or logistics or whatever it is. So in that way, again, a resource that was a resource for you in one company may not be in the future. So it has to do with you taking action and being curious and really doing a lot of research and knowing, you know, what's current. Is this going to last forever? Am I doing a job that may become obsolete? Maybe machines will take over. Maybe it will be outsourced. So being aware of those changes. Any more questions?
It's not a question. Actually,
Yes.
here the aspirants who have come, it's out of the topic actually.
Yeah.
They want to do MBA in Canada, and they're interested in global MBA. What we have an MBA with your the university and all. So how is it? How they can decide? How can they go about it? And I think they want to know more about the careers or career options at Canada.
So, okay, that's a totally different topic, but let me think, what can I give you? What kind of advice? Well, first of all, to study in Canada or in United States, the basic skill, okay, that you need is language. So making sure that, I know all of you speak wonderful English, but to study abroad, you need really strong language skills. Second piece of advice is do a lot of research online, but also try to connect to those relatives and friends who live, whether it's Canada or United States or Australia, I don't know where you want to go, and learn as much as you can about life and opportunities. Call the school, talk to people. Don't just think that if you write one email, to a program director or career counselor, they will always respond. Unfortunately, we don't. We get a lot of emails like that every day. I do for my programs. And oftentimes what I see is that the person who's writing me, they haven't looked at our website first. So they're writing me the same questions that they would have answered if they searched our program online. And clearly, I don't have the time to respond to so many people about the same things that are already there. So sometimes I send a brochure, sometimes I send a link, sometimes I refer them to my graduate program assistant who will answer questions in more detail. So do your own research thoroughly first before you approach the school or people that you think have answers. Take extra language courses, and if you can, connect to somebody that you know in the place who will give you even more personal advice. But I think like in any program, we look at your grades. If you're coming as international student, so if you're paying higher tuition, not all schools have as many openings for international students. Some will accept only a few international students. Even though you have the money, you want to study abroad, we don't have as many openings for foreign students. So keep in mind that you're competing with a lot of people from different countries for a very few spots. And I think sometimes it's easier to get into a master's program, MBA, in another country like Canada if you had work experience in a company that's recognizable in Canada. So if it's a multinational or a name, a brand name, where we are certain of the kinds of skills that you got, some MBA programs are really looking for people who've had solid work experience before you go on to study in an MBA. So that's the advice, okay? Any other? Okay, thank you very much.